All right. It says we are live. View the dashboard. There we go.
And we're going.
Yeah, let me get you your link. Well, that's not it.
Is this good broadcasting? While you do that, I'll say so.
Here it is.
Okay. If anybody's been paying attention, we've been doing these reaction shows to the college football playoff. We've been doing post game shows for all the A&M games after the game, and generally just talking mostly Aggie football, but a little basketball. And we're going to keep doing that until we get bored with it, I guess. So
That is
make
not
sure
the
you
link.
subscribe, like the channel, follow us on Twitter, Out Meltdown Ags, and all that stuff. And we'll try to get the show started and tweet out this link.
Yeah, that was
Brian
not the link,
struggling
by
with.
the way. Do not use that
I'm
link.
not going to use it.
All right, good.
But anyway, the rankings came out tonight as expected by me, at least. A&M's position is unchanged, sitting at number 5. Brian had the crazy prediction earlier tonight that A&M would go to 4 and jump Ohio State, which I said was insane, and I was right. You cry foul on that, though.
I am going to cry foul on that because I didn't say they would. What I said was this is important. I said if at some point in this process, either today or in the final rankings next week, if A&M was to jump Ohio State, okay, presumably so the committee could avoid A&M playing Bama in the first round. If they were going to jump Ohio State, it would happen tonight and not on Sunday night with the final rankings. So, and look, I mean, I had some reasons for that. Mainly that even though the teams didn't play, some things happened over the weekend that I feel actually bolstered the resume a little bit. And look, LSU beating Florida to me, actually, a lot of people said, "Oh, that's a bad thing for A&M because it dilutes their best win," and I say that's garbage. It's been clear anybody that has watched LSU, they did what we thought they would do, that they would get better as the season went on, and they won some football games before we played them, and we did what we did to them, and then they won another football game after that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
of course they got shredded by Bama, like everybody else, but they've won some games, and I do think the committee does look at how you're playing at the end of the year as well. Okay, Iowa State, case in point, and we'll talk about that later.
Yep.
But I just felt like, and as the rankings were being unveiled, I think you got a little nervous about my thought because what you saw was the committee valuing the Southeastern Conference in their rankings. Georgia pops up number 8, right? And Florida dropped one spot
Yeah.
from 6 to 7 after a loss. And you're sitting there going, okay, they're recognizing the strength of the conference here. And maybe that pushes A&M above Ohio State for this week. Because that's something based on the outcomes this weekend that the committee could walk back pretty easily. Like if we lost, yeah, no harm, no foul. If they had already in their minds decided loser of Notre Dame Clemson is out, no matter what, then they're in a good spot, right? Like they could have done it with very little repercussion other than ESPN losing their freaking minds.
Boy, and they would have lost their minds just based on even how their reactions went tonight as things got unrolled. But I think, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think it's a little bit of a solution in search of a problem. I think the committee has shown before that they'll turn it on its head in the final rankings. They don't really care if it makes sense based on all the previous rankings. But I would agree that it seems to have been a popular opinion that if A&M gets in, that the committee would try to avoid that rematch with Bama in the first round by coming up with a reason to put A&M at number 3, and I think that notion probably kind of died tonight, uh,
Yeah, I
for
think
all the
so.
reasons you said. Could be wrong, you know. Like I just said, the committee, they could flip it on you and not care, but I don't think they will. Like you said, maybe kind of punishment for having the bad loss to Alabama before is okay. If you want in, now you got to beat these guys. I wouldn't blame them for that.
Yeah.
So, and I would relish the opportunity. So,
There's something that you just said there about how the committee has behaved in the past and how they've shown a willingness to upend things in the final rankings. And actually, I do agree with you, but this committee has actually been pretty consistent, and they haven't shown like a fickleness at the top. And I think they are kind of sending some messages in how they're thinking, whether it's intentional or not. Their rankings each week do send messages, right? Like, because you now understand kind of how they view things. And with everything that has transpired so far in the season, to me, they see 4 teams as elite. They see, the clear cut favorites. And by putting A&M where they put them at 5 for now, what, 3 weeks in a row? 3 rankings in a row.
it's 4.
4. Okay. Did they start at 5?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they're saying that's the first one in. And everything that's happened below us with Florida kind of hanging out there right behind us and then only dropping a spot, and Iowa State and Cincinnati moving down, even though that they're undefeated, and Oklahoma popping in there at 10, like that's 6 to 10, that's 6 to 12. It's just leftovers. It really is. And they're kind of lining those up for chaos. But I think they've sent a very clear message. The top 4 are the best 4, but slip up and number 5's popping in there. I mean, that's just the way I've viewed their thinking this whole time.
And that makes sense. We've known for weeks now that one of those teams ahead of us is going to lose. One of them has to lose. So
Yes.
That's the only thing that kind of gives me pause, right? Because what are they going to do? It's strange to me that Florida only dropped 1 spot after that. And even I think Reese or somebody brought up kind of a good point. Like, whoa, if Florida only drops a spot for that, does Clemson really drop 3 if they lose? Does Notre Dame drop 3 if they lose?
Yeah, I do get that. But a 2-loss Clemson, that's one data point. The rest of the data points just don't add up to me, right? That you couldn't justify Clemson losing twice to the same football team and put them back into a playoff with that same team. That just doesn't compute. I think the only question is the one that a lot of us have been asking is, well, if if Clemson wins and they split, then what happens? I still don't think the committee has an appetite for a 3-game set with those football teams. I think they do treat the last weekend of the season as a playoff. I think football people kind of value that and say at this time of the year with this much riding on it, you better win. You have to win. The playoff starts now, including for A&M. So I still feel like and have felt ever since I saw A&M at 5 that while we don't control our own destiny, you just win and it's going to work out.
Yeah. And I like what you said about the committee sending a message. A&M's been 5 the entire time that these are the next ones in. And yet nobody seems to be picking up on that.
Right.
And the media is one thing because it does seem that, some people have maybe a little bit of a personal bias. It's not that they don't like it A&M, so I don't like using the word bias sometimes because I don't really mean to imply that. I just mean maybe it's a blind spot. Maybe it's what their view on the college football landscape. But even, how many people have told me, friends of ours, whatever, hey, you guys know you're not getting in, right? Like,
yes,
it is just a default thing. People just say it, and I'm like, what? Why would I know that? We're number 5. We've been number 5 the entire time. So yes, I understand that there are blocks in front of us, and it's going to take some chips falling our way to get in, but we've been number 5 the whole time. And it was great to see David Pollock actually bring that up tonight after freaking Galloway running his mouth again. What a moron. And, and Herbstreit and Reese, and they're all talking about it. And Pollock is like, hey, why have we not talked about A&M? I don't understand this. Let me look at the thing. Are they number 5 again? Are they still number 5? They've been 5 the whole time. And that's all Aggies have really been saying this whole time is we're number 5. Whatever happens in front of us, we're the next ones if they decide to put somebody else in there. It's obvious. So
it just seems
yeah,
obvious. And I thought the biggest win of the night was not that David Pollock defended A&M or brought up just the fact that David Pollock mentioned A&M. Like the name A&M came up on the show. The name A&M came up in the discussion.
Yeah.
And that's where people have lost their minds, who are on the kind of that outside of this national media group that seems really hell bent on just ignoring what Jimbo Fisher and the Aggies have done, and rubbing that Bama loss in their nose like that's some kind of stain, and not losing by 3 scores to ULA on the first week of the season is not a stain, right?
Yeah.
Like they're trying, like holy crap, how ridiculous is that? And by the way, that team who lost to ULA lost again. Okay, so it's just mind-boggling what's happening at the mothership at ESPN right now. And tonight, what struck me was I couldn't believe how incredulous Reese Davis looked, how smarmy the rest of them looked in talking around it. They actually looked unhappy with what was going on in these rankings, as if, how dare the committee do what they did to with Florida, to Cincinnati. Like it was really bizarre, just the whole sort of aura around the show. And I didn't really watch after they got through the initial rankings. I didn't watch their commentary. Had other things that needed to be done tonight. But man, that really struck me. And all I can think is, if it plays out the way we think it's going to play out, they're going to lose their you-know-what on Sunday night.
They are, and it's because of something you tweeted earlier this week, which is 100% correct. They don't like that the committee has diluted their influence on what happens.
Yes.
And that as every year goes by, their grip on college football diminishes. And I mean, certainly if you talk about expanding this thing, then it just becomes completely, but and they don't like it. You're exactly right. They seem just like ticked off about it.
They do. And there's just been so much other things around college football and in the off season and during the pandemic and everything else. The other thing I mentioned is, like, you look at some of these national, especially the sports writers, and they seem like they hate their job. They seem like they cannot believe the season got played anyway. They actively sort of campaigned for it not to be played. They got caught up in a lot of the rhetoric and, sort of the negativity that was hanging over a lot of things. Like, how dare you put athletes in danger? How dare you put their families in danger and these students? Meanwhile, we've played over 400 football games. We don't have a single documented case of a student athlete, a football player, getting severely ill from COVID or passing it and killing a family member, right? Like, look, I know that could still happen, but it hasn't happened. And so all of the things that they warned everybody about and everything else going on, like, they're just pissed. And they're just looking for anything to be pissed about. You got Brando railing against the committee, and
oh god,
you've got Wolken railing against
everything
up USC. Like, his line in the sand is USC. Like, if USC doesn't get in and A&M does, like, that's it for him. What? I mean, what a moron. I mean, that guy's been wrong about everything, So that's the aura.
Yeah.
That's where we are, And it's
But
going
that's
to be
what makes them
fascinating.
angry. Because so what if it's it for him? Like
Yeah,
it being it for him is so
it
inconsequential.
is.
And I
It
think
really is.
as the words come out of his mouth, you can tell it just makes him even angrier. Like, wait a minute, I'm saying this, but it can't matter one bit, and it just makes it worse.
Yeah. Well, the butt hurt is real, and the butt hurt's going to get worse if A&M goes out and takes care of business this weekend. But let's talk. Let's talk about the games coming up that do matter to us.
Mhm.
Obviously, Tennessee matters. We have to win that football game, or else all of this is a moot point. From an A&M perspective. But you got OSU. They are in the Big Ten title game. The Big Ten took care of that. Um, I have no problem with that.
No,
By the
no,
way,
neither.
I really don't. I mean, I'm still very much ticked off at what the Big Ten tried to pull in the offseason and basically eliminate college football, and then walked it back. But Ohio State was not part of that. Ohio State and Nebraska wanted to play, and the Big Ten wouldn't be playing today if it wasn't for those two football teams.
Yeah.
And so I have no problem with Ohio State getting a shot at the title game. They do play Northwestern. They should beat Northwestern. But Northwestern's not a team to be trifled with. They've got a great defense, and they play a really nasty, drag you through the mud brand of football. A lot like what
Like
A&M
A&M. Yeah.
just with better talent at A&M. But, don't trip up, guys. It's an 11 a.m. kick again. They haven't played for 2 weeks, just like us. Stranger things have happened in college football. So
Like LSU, Florida.
like LSU,
Well, LSU
Florida.
is much better than Northwestern.
Yeah.
But, still.
Well, and I don't think that Ohio State's played a defense as good as what Northwestern throws out there.
No, neither.
And, when OSU has played someone with a decent defense, Justin Fields is prone to some mistakes. So Northwestern's got a fighter's chance in that game. Like you said, stranger things have happened. Kind of reminds me of kind of K-State A&M back in 98.
Yeah.
Anything can happen. It's kind of the same sort of situation, same kind of football teams on both sides. I'll skip Notre Dame, Clemson. Let's talk about Bama and Florida.
Mm.
So, can Florida make it back into the playoff if they beat Alabama?
I don't think so. God, but that was my feeling when they lost, and now I haven't really reevaluated since they only moved down one spot tonight. But man, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
I don't know if they could. That would be chaos. That would be the scenario of all these games that if that happened, we would all be, and a lot of teams would be on complete edge on whether they're getting in or not, and what's going to happen there. First of all, Florida's not beating Alabama. And here's what have we said all along about Florida? What have we said?
They're not physical enough.
They are not a physical football team.
Mm-mm.
They're a very talented football team, but their defense sucks. It sucks. And, Florida fans try to tell you, oh, our defense got better. No, it didn't. I watched those games. I watched them close. I watched Georgia get behind your defense 15 times in that game. And if they had a quarterback that could have thrown a football more than 10 yards, okay, with a bad wing, then that's a whole different ball game completely. And, I think I made the point. Here's how Florida beats Alabama is if Mac Jones comes out and he underthrows every receiver by about 20 yards. Because if he only
that's how far behind you they'll be.
That's how far behind you. If he underthrows them by 10 yards, they're still going to score. Okay? That's how far behind your secondary, Florida, that the Bama receivers are going to be. These guys are elite, and your secondary is trash. And you don't have a defensive front that's physical enough to deal with Najee Harris and that offensive line.
No,
they're going to run on you.
Great offensive line.
It's great. So they're going to run on you like A&M ran on you. And they're going to go over the top a hell of a lot worse than Caleb Chapman did to you. And that was embarrassing for you. So it is not going to happen if it does happen, damn, I think I would have to get the shirt of shame tattooed on my body if that's what happened. That's how strongly I feel about it and have felt about it, because we raised the flag on the LSU game,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Because LSU is physical.
They are physical.
And
As Bob Stern put it this week, talking about A&M, actually, they bring a bag of hammers with you.
Yes.
And I love that. I love that people are saying that about our football team. But certainly LSU has been doing that for years. And yeah, so you knew they were going to wear on Florida, just like A&M wore on Florida. I love what you put together today about beginning with the drive, the 8 of 9 rushing, right, in the second half to go down, take control of the game against Florida, to sort of not necessarily take control, but sort of flip the script and get the momentum on your side.
Yep.
A&M outscored them 24-10
from the first carry of that drive.
Yeah,
which was, I think, at about the 9-minute mark of the third quarter.
Yeah,
and we were down a touchdown. I think that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so from that point, from that first carry for Spiller, A&M outrushed Florida by 142 yards, outscored them 25-10, dominated time of possession. And look, here's why that was so monumental. Because when we watched the Alabama game, we didn't see a giant blowout. What we saw was A&M comes out and matches Alabama physically in the trenches and moves the football and was slowing Alabama down at the point of attack as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay? They're getting beat over the top, just like every other football team, especially with a young secondary playing their second game of the year. Okay. But they were physically in the football game. And that was a close game through the second quarter, right up until halftime.
Mm-hmm.
And then A&M actually came out and tried to make it a football game again. Okay. But we came out of that game not going, oh, well, we got blown out by Alabama. No, we said, man, we can beat Florida.
Yeah.
That football team is physical enough and good enough to beat Florida and to go on a run. Okay. So when you got into the Florida game and it starts out the way it does, and it's kind of this back and forth affair, like we're getting pissed. We're getting frustrated because we're like, we're better than these guys.
Yeah.
You can see it. We're more physical. We dominating them on both sides of the football. We're running it. We can do this. And it was like that team still didn't believe in what it was. And when they went on that drive, this is what they kicked off. On that drive, from then on, for the rest of the season, they've outscored their SEC opponents by 108. Average margin of victory, 18 points. Outgained teams on their schedule, 772 yards. They've outrushed their opponents by 747 yards. And they've held the ball 54 minutes more than their opponents. That's almost an entire extra football game that the A&M offense has had.
That one's insane. Because how many games are we talking about on that since then? Right, that's like a 6-game stretch.
Yeah,
I mean,
6 games,
almost 10 minutes per game. That's insane, especially in today's day and age of offense and everything. Nobody does what we're doing right now.
No, it's a bag of hammers.
It's a bag of hammers,
and you got to deal with that. And what that means is, look, those stats are pretty overwhelming for people that are paying attention and really understand football, and the committee does, right? Like R.C. Slocum is on that committee. Look at how A&M's winning those games is like, damn, that's badass. Like, holy crap.
It is. And, like you said, 24-10 in the second, or let's say the last quarter and a half against a good Florida team. Outscored Auburn, was it 14 or 17-0 in the fourth quarter? What we're doing, like, that's what really tells you about the physicality of the team, because we're just wearing these guys down and they can't deal with it for an entire game. So even though we make mistakes, shoot ourselves in the foot against Auburn, over and over and over again, really, at the end of the day, like that catches up to you. And we wore them down. Now against Alabama, you shoot yourself in the foot over and over again. All of a sudden you turn around and you're like, dang it, like 3 touchdowns just happened.
Yeah.
Even though you're still standing up to them physically. And that could very well happen again if we're matched up with them again. But I don't think it will.
I don't think it will either. I think the team has a totally different view of itself. And, if you go back to that Alabama game too, we did get down a couple of scores.
Mm-hmm.
And I
tied it up.
Yeah, they tied it up and they stuck to what they were doing. And they really even did it once they were down 3 scores in the second half. Like Jimbo's like, no, here's what we're going to be. And we're not going to be that today. We're not going to be great at it, but we're going to be this, he's trying to make them into something. And I have heard enough national guys, even the Joel Klatts of the world, that are national, and then your local guys like a Bob Sturm, and a couple of others who are starting to recognize that. Like they're stepping back and going, holy crap, Jimbo, that's a Jimbo Fisher football team. What I see playing right now is what he has pushed it to be. It's taken on his identity. He stuck to it. He didn't abandon it, in week 1 against Vanderbilt because it wasn't going great, or week 2 against Alabama because Alabama got up big. He's like, no, because in November, I want this football team to look like this.
Yeah.
And holy hell, it does.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'll say one more thing about that because you're right. Lots of media personalities are taking notice. I do get a little annoyed because they do talk about it. They're impressed by it, but they also talk about it in this kind of air of like 3 yards in a cloud of dust. You know what I mean?
No, I hear you.
And I'll just say this. You watch the offenses that Jimbo had at Florida, and they weren't 3 yards in a cloud of dust. We have not seen the complete potential of this offense. You can remain physical and do all the things we're doing and still become a much more explosive version of that. And yes. I do think that's on the horizon for us, but just maybe not this year.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we saw some glimpses at points in this season, but there's not enough horses in the barn at the wide receiver position. And frankly, there's not a quarterback whose DNA is designed to do that on a consistent basis. I think that is on campus, and we'll see how that transpires over the next couple of seasons. But I think you're right. You build a program on these principles, being a physical football team, running the football, and then you start to try to build in explosiveness. And Jimbo Fisher did do that at Florida State, and that's what he's going to try to do here too.
Yeah.
So we didn't talk about Notre Dame Clemson. We didn't talk about the matchup. I said we were going to skip it. That's the last one for this weekend, in my opinion, that you really want to spend much time on. What do you think is going to happen when they tee it up again, 2:30 on Saturday?
I've been thinking that Clemson is going to win by at least 14, 17 points, only because everyone says, well, they put up all these yards and look what they did with the backup quarterback, and so Trevor Lawrence isn't going to make that much difference. And I'll point out a couple of things. One, they had some defensive guys out also during that game, so that's important. And two, my thinking has been that despite the fact that they put up lots of yards and points in that game, with Trevor Lawrence, I think they do it quicker, and they get on a roll early, and they start to make Notre Dame more one-dimensional and maintain a grip on the game for the entire game that I don't think they were able to do with a backup quarterback in his first start. It was playing well, but it's not the same as what we've seen Trevor Lawrence be able to do. The only thing that worries me about that is, Cole Kublik's got me now really down on Clemson's offensive line, and I worry that there's just something not quite the same with the offense, even with Trevor Lawrence back. But in the end, I still think they probably win by like 17.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that feels about right. And I like what you said about, Lawrence's ability to kind of strike quickly, but also late. We watched that game, and we watched the end of it, and we watched the overtime, and the kid really struggled as the game kind of got bigger, and it got more intense, and that seems to be where Trevor Lawrence plays the best. Like when it's really when it elevates, he elevates, and they seem to kind of be missing that, and Vegas certainly seems to think that Clemson's going to trash them. I think the last I saw it was 11.5. We're opened at 11.5.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where it's gone to since, but a team that lost earlier in the year in that matchup to be an 11.5 point favorite on a neutral field, that tells you what kind of they feel about it. So, okay, what happens if that's the case? Clemson wins by 2 or 3 scores. I think we talked about it a little bit more, but
yeah, and my thinking on that hasn't changed. Everyone keeps saying it's got to be a blowout. It's got to be 21, or maybe at least as badly as Alabama beat us for Notre Dame to fall behind us. And I just don't think that's the case. I think it has to just be enough so that the committee says that Clemson is clearly better than Notre Dame, and that Clemson would have been clearly better than Notre Dame 5 or 6 weeks ago, and with a healthy Trevor Lawrence. And so that's essentially 2 losses for them, and we don't want to see a potential third matchup
because we know what's going to happen.
Because we know what's going to happen, and so they're out. And I don't think that requires 21 points at all. I think that could be as little as 10 points. It just depends on how the game looks. If it's a backdoor cover or to get to 10 points late in the fourth when Clemson's controlled the whole game by 2 or 3 scores, then I think A&M's in ahead of Notre Dame.
Yeah. So that's it. The last game is Oklahoma, Iowa State. Go jump in a lake.
Yeah.
Because, no, that ain't happening. And I think the committee told you that ain't happening with Oklahoma sitting out there at 11. I think they're
10. They moved to 10. So that's this weekend, and we'll look forward to that. But tomorrow is early signing day.
It is. It's early signing day, but it's essentially just National Signing Day now.
Yeah.
You're going to have some stragglers. A&M is sitting outside the top 10 in recruiting right now. But if you listen to the people who do this for a living and who really know what's going on behind the scenes with A&M recruiting, they've got a different message for A&M fans. And this is Billy Lucci and Broninger and Howell. These guys are setting us all up for major disappointment tomorrow.
That's true.
They have been selling this for a few days as the biggest close, maybe in A&M recruiting history, that we are in on no less than 7, maybe 8 elite, high 4-star, 5-star,
borderline 5 stars. Yeah,
and that the guru of them all at one point has said he feels like we will win 90% of those. Okay. And,
many percents.
That's many percents. And the one guy that he's not so sure of is an out-of-state guy, MJ Daniels, choosing between Mississippi State and Ole Miss and maybe A&M. The rest of these guys, though, holy smokes. If A&M goes and, if Jimbo closes it on all those dudes, then this recruiting class not only jumps into the top 10, it will border on being a top 5 class. And the only downside to tomorrow is that a lot of these guys aren't going to announce and or sign tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So, it may be kind of boring in the morning. We got two huge commitments over the weekend, and that got everybody excited. And it kind of looked like we were going to build all this momentum to signing day, and then it's been very quiet since Saturday. But you've got Tunis Adelier tomorrow night. That guy's a monster.
Yeah.
And we're hearing 7:30 tomorrow night on ESPN.
ESPN.
Okay, so I was a little confused by that. If A&M picks up that recruitment, you will see them sort of break into that top 10. And then on Thursday, that's Bryce Foster, the can't miss monster offensive lineman. It's down to us and OU by all accounts. He's a 5-star talent. Yeah. Then you start moving up again.
Another Kenyon Green.
Yeah, another Kenyon Green. But even probably to me looks like more of a
tackle eventually.
Yeah, and potentially kind of first day. Just physically, he's ready to go.
Yeah,
physically he's ready to go, and Kenyon was too. That's a little revisionist history. Dude was pretty ready.
Yeah.
There's some other guys out there. JoJo Oral out of Alito, the 5'9" wide receiver, who's an absolute burner.
That'd be a pretty big one. That's going to be hard, I think, but would be awesome.
Well, he's wavering in his commitment to LSU. It sounds like he's not going to sign tomorrow.
Yeah,
and kind of open things back up. That's the kind of guy, though. That's the Jalen Waddle type.
Yeah,
those guys they're game breakers, and man, it's something we need, because that kind of speed is just, you don't find it everywhere. So I don't want to see him go anywhere else. He's going to open it up. He needs to come here. Who's the other kid out of currently committed? Brian Thomas, wide receiver, that decommitted from LSU.
He did decommit, I think.
Yeah, so that's out there as a possibility. We already talked about MJ Daniels, a couple of guys on the back end of the secondary, and I feel like we're Elijah Judy still the weak side defensive end, I believe, from New Jersey.
If you think so, I mean, you're talking about Shamar Turner, who we did get commit from.
Yes.
Tunmishe, won't try to pronounce his last name because I haven't seen a credible attempt at that yet, or haven't heard of it.
Adelier. I did it.
I don't think I believe you. No, and then Elijah Judy. If we get 2 out of those 3, even in addition to who's already committed, that's an incredible defensive line class. If you get all 3 out of them, holy cow. And we've already seen what Jimbo has done to this defensive line in just, a couple of seasons, really.
Yep.
It's incredible. And it's only going to get better. And that is the Jimbo difference.
It is. And so tomorrow's going to be a good day. And it'll only get better from there. You got the LJ Johnson recruitment that's probably going to go all the way till maybe January. Some of these kids, though, they want to announce at the Army All-American games and the Under Army games and Under Armour games, and they might actually sign a letter of intent tomorrow, but the schools, they sit on those. They wait for those kids to announce. But either way, we expect this recruiting class close to be one that we'll probably be talking about for several years from now.
Somebody tell these kids that they owe 40-year-old men an announcement.
What do they think they're doing?
What do they think they're doing?
Why are they making us wait? Don't they know what's important?
Yeah.
Don't they know that momentum on signing day is important?
Kids.
Yeah, kids. So, speaking of old man rants, our the guru, Billy,
had our fearless leader,
had a hell of a rant yesterday in talking about what's going on nationally and the coverage. And I actually thought it was pretty interesting because Billy, he doesn't just go after people all the time.
No,
but he has been unleashed this week, and on social media, in going on these talk shows and everything else. And, basically on TexAgs Radio with Gabe, just called on the masses. He said, look, You know, no, it's not time to just sit back and, well, just win and take care of business and everything will play out the way it's going to play out. You know, he's kind of had enough of it. He's had enough of the crap that's being doled out, and basically like, hey, go after these guys. So, we're doing our part.
Yeah.
Our part out on Twitter.
Going to unleash all 300 followers of us on Reese Davis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna take on all the fighting Reese Davis.
He's gonna feel it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But look, it does bring up a point because I was having this conversation with somebody today, an Ohio State fan, and not a huge college football fan, but they cheer for Ohio State, and just brought it up, and I just looked at him and I said, "Look, here's the deal." I said, "If we lose on Saturday, don't talk to me. Don't talk to me for a week. I am going to be a miserable, intolerable person. But if we win,
it's going to be so much worse.
It will be so much worse. I will turn into a monster. And the Twitter accounts, the Aggie Nation, right? Actually, I hate the term Aggie Nation.
Yeah,
the Aggies, are going to lose their minds. And college, I just don't think college football is ready for this. And maybe that's where all the energy comes from. They're not ready for what we are.
No, right? Because they're tired of us when we haven't won anything.
Exactly.
And I think they know that if we actually could win something, we would be the most insufferable fan base on the planet. And you're right. And I'm here for it. I'm ready for it. I don't care.
Yeah. I thought about a lot of these fan bases, what happens when they turn the corner, and I'm like, you guys ain't shooting shit yet. Because as Joel Klatt put it on one of his radio appearances this week, Aggie walks around with her chest puffed out all the time, right? And they haven't done anything. And I'm like, well, that's because we don't puff our chests out because of what we have or what we have not done. No. We puff our chest out because we're Aggies.
Yeah.
Okay? And we freaking love being Aggies. We love it, right? It's like the most important thing. And if you give us something like this, we are going to be the worst people on the planet.
No, we are. And I love that you point that out, because I think that is the root of what some people are the root. I mean, it really is the thing that people hate the most about Aggies. And that is Aggies love being Aggies.
We do. We love it.
And not only that, there's nothing you could ever do or say. There's no 77-0 beatdown you could ever give us that will ever make us love being Aggies any less. And that drives them crazy, because let me tell you something. Longhorn fans right now, they don't love being Longhorns.
No.
Nearly as much as they did 10, 15 years ago. They don't.
I saw a guy in a burnt orange shirt the other day at a restaurant, and I was like, oh my God, somebody actually wore their gear.
Yeah.
Somebody chose to wear that shirt out in public, because you don't see it.
And that guy doesn't even know what it is.
Yeah. You don't see it. And because they don't love, they love winning. And when they're winning, it's great. And at A&M, doesn't matter. We're Aggies 247, 365. We love everything about it. And if this thing shakes out the way we want it, we're coming for everybody. Everybody. And, the Billy Boys, hashtag Billy Boys. Sorry about that.
Not catching on.
Everybody. It's not catching on. It's not trending on Twitter the last time I checked. But you know what? Give it time. You never know. Throw out the right tweet. Okay, you're right. But yeah. So cheers to being intolerable, a-hole, cultists, Aggies. So what we're going to do. And, beat the hell out of Tennessee. Beat the hell out of the college football committee playoff. Beat the hell out of the Fighting Reese Davises. Beat the hell out of, I don't know, whatever. This stupid radio show. That's enough. It's time to kill it.
All right.
We'll see you guys on Saturday. Like Casey said at the beginning, hey, subscribe to the channel. You'll get notified when we jump on the post-game show. I don't know how we're going to pull off this weekend because I am going to Knoxville. I'm determined to get to Knoxville, but we'll figure out something. If things go, we'll probably do multiple shows on Saturday and then Sunday again.
And Sunday as well.
Yeah. So make sure you subscribe, follow us out on Twitter, Meltdown Eggs, and we'll see you next time.